Well, today, there are two things in my past I did not miss. Midday Live, I say it every time I have this man on, and the Morton Downey Jr. show, which this man was responsible for. And the first one I enjoyed thoroughly. The second one I enjoyed, but I got nervous on the second one. Very nervous, very uneasy, but yet entertained at the same time. It was great stuff. The great Bill Boggs joins me,
Oh,
and
thank you.
here he
That's
is.
thank
He,
you,
th- he
Ralph.
did the same thing. When I praised him the last time, he did the same oh shucks thing that he's doing right
Oh, it's
now.
true. What am
You
I supposed to
deserve
say? Yeah, you're right. You could have done more. Uh,
it.
the Morton Downey Jr. show, some people loved it. Others thought it was a blight on our society, but people don't remember much about it anymore. There's a wonderful documentary called Provocateur,
Mm.
made about 7 years ago, that covers Mort, the show, his life. For somebody not knowing what we're talking about, Morton Downey Jr. was like an angry radio host who Bob Pittman, the guy from MTV, brought into television on the Morton Downey Jr. show on Channel 9 in New York. And as Regis Philbin accurately said, the Morton Downey Jr. show was the fastest rise and fall of anybody in the history of television. And I was on a roller coaster ride as executive producer of that show.
Now, was that the real personality that we saw every night with him, or is that some kind of
No,
contrived thing that he was doing?
no, Mort was a performance artist. It was an act, a good
Yeah.
act. That's what it was.
Behind the scenes, Bill, how was he?
He was a warm, funny guy. Unfortunately, a chain smoker, liked to have a lot of fun. Um, Always wore red socks. One time when we took the show on the road for a while. We're doing Morton Downey Jr. shows in Detroit. When we drove into Canada and coming back, they wanted ID. We didn't have appropriate ID, but Mort showed them his red socks. And oh, you're Morton Downey Jr. Yeah, and they let us in. But it's true.
Yeah, it was a tremendous time, a much different time. This day and age, we are dealing with technology, of course. We're dealing with all these complicated machinery, and it's much different. I mean, it was more hands-on back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably. I mean, things change all the time. Change is inevitable. I like to say growth from that change is optional. So yeah, I mean, AI, God knows how far that's going to go. But I remember when it was first introduced, David Brooks, a columnist in the New York Times, said this is the most important invention since the printing press and the Gutenberg Bible. So stay tuned. I don't know what's going to happen there, but
Well,
maybe we'll have some work again. Hmm.
before we got on the air, we talked briefly about the new book because I want to talk about that. Let's talk about that first.
Okay.
Well, second and third, because we did talk about a couple of things. But that brand new book, that brand new series, Unlikely Title, that title, when I first heard that title, I said, that is different, but that really hits home. From the dog's perspective, that's pretty darn original. Excellent
Yeah.
job on that. This is number three, right?
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the beginning, what we're talking about. In about 8 years ago, I realized pretty much my career on television was over. I
Mm.
was in my 70s. The show I was doing for the AARP went off the air. And I thought, I've been chasing jobs, aggressive to get work my entire life. I'm going to just change my personal identity for myself. I'm not no longer thinking of myself as a TV host. I'm going to think of myself as a writer. And I sat down. I had this idea about a guy like me who's living in High Point, North Carolina, where I was, who has an English Bull Terrier with a spot on the eye, comes to New York in today's world, and he and the dog become huge international stars because of social media. And the dog has some enemies. So the first book was called The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog. That was followed immediately, what's like a year and a half later, with this book, Spike Unleashed, The Wonder Dog Returns. And, the book has gotten amazing reviews. Not many people read. I meet people all the time. You're an author? Yeah. Oh, give me your card. Do you read? Well, they're not going to read it. But anyway, Spike Unleashed, It's available on Amazon for, get this, $11, pretty
Mhm.
reasonable. And I guarantee you'll be laughing out loud all the way through the book. I started my career in comedy, and I'm ending my career essentially as a satirist. This is heavy hitting social satire because it is the dog's voice telling the story, like The Art of Racing in the Rain or The Call of the Wild. Spike the Wonder Dog is observing human foibles and a lot of other things from a perspective that would be different if it was a human being. And as Bill Maher said to me about the book, he loved the book. He said, "You can get away with anything because it's the dog who's doing it, not
It's
you."
true. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Now, Bill has a presence on YouTube, other platforms that I may not know about. I don't deal with all the other platforms necessarily, but Bill, you can find him everywhere. And you go back, you harken back to these wonderful interviews, whether
Thank
it
you.
be sitting in a restaurant, whether it be in a studio, however you see these interviews, you always get things out of people, Bill, that others cannot get out of anyone else. I've never seen
Ah,
anyone quite get you make them feel really comfortable. You're very good. Make them feel very comfortable. Then you ask them a very provocative question
well, that's
right in the
true.
middle of regular conversation, and that always worked for you.
Well, yeah, you know what I found? It's very good, astute observation. What
Thank
I
you.
found was if I could get the guest comfortable, then we could talk about almost anything. And I think that the compliment that I received over the course of a couple decades of interviewing people, the compliment I received the most was you made me feel really comfortable. And with that as a basis, you can really go places. But it wasn't a manipulative thing. It's just something I did naturally.
Yeah, you had that kind of face. I'm serious. The face matters. I
Oh, the
know
face that makes you
it's
comfortable?
no, you had, yep. If I when I watch or listen on the radio, the guy has to have a voice.
Yeah,
On TV, he can't be, overwhelmingly homely. The person, whether it be male or
that's
female,
very well
it's
put.
it's a very visual medium. You gotta, so you had that very trustworthy face. I'm telling you, Bill. And they would just get not lured in because this was all very genuine on your part, but they get the feel that they were talking in their living room, not in the studio, not on TV, and it works so beautifully. And I remember Miles Davis. I remember Sinatra. I remember Richard Pryor. I think you had on. Dustin Hoffman. I mean, these are just a few names that pop into my head.
Well, what we should quickly point out that these interviews, those you just mentioned, and many more, like Sean Connery, Natalie Wood, many, many, there's 400 of them, and they're on my YouTube channel, which is all free. And the YouTube channel is Bill Boggs, it's me, TV. I did a series that was syndicated 121 stations in the mid 80s. While I was doing midday, I actually was on camera 9 straight 7-day weeks because on the weekend, we shot a show called Comedy Tonight. When I say we, my business partner is Richard Baker. And we had this idea. There'd never been one on television. There were so many comedians performing. Saturday Night Live ushered in a time of great stand-up. We realized there's so many comedians, we can just do a show with 3 or 4 comedians a show, just doing stand-up. And so we created this first show in the history of television that was just stand-up comedians, and it was on Fox in New York. And when Barry Diller came in, at Murdoch's request, he took us off the air and put on his own version of the same show called Comic Strip Live. But I got two years out of that, uh, at least over 100 shows. And the reason I'm going on about this is we've just added 3/4 of the entire series of Comedy Tonights to Bill Boggs TV. And this is not a money-making thing for me. This is a way to save these comedians for posterity. You've got, oh, Rita Rudner, Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg did a couple of shows. Sinbad. Uh, it's hard for me to remember all the names. Some of them have gone on to solid careers. Others have just fallen by the wayside, but all of them were funny. So there's a lot of entertainment right there on Bill Boggs TV. Now, with the Comedy Tonight. All I have to do is Google Bill Boggs Comedy Tonight or Bill. Yeah, I think that would do it on YouTube or Bill Boggs TV on YouTube, Comedy Tonight. Easy to find, very easy to find.
Well, I didn't steal from you. This is Ralph Romeo TV as opposed to Bill Boggs TV. I didn't live from you. You didn't live from me. It's a coincidence. Here's one thing. I saw Dana Carvey and a guy named was it David Spade, right there. They do a podcast. They brought your name up, and this is what prompted me to get in touch with you
Well,
because
this is
we
interesting. I
hadn't
didn't
got.
know that.
Yeah, they brought your name up. Everybody likes to be talked about, but in a
Of course.
positive sense. In a positive
Yes.
sense. And David said, I'm not familiar with Bill Boggs. And Dana was just shocked. Not familiar. This guy is responsible for comedy. Just what you just said. That program you just described, he made David look like a fool for not knowing this very unique show that
Oh, it's
you
a
made.
while ago, you know.
And they talked about you for a good 10 minutes. I said, I got to call my friend Bill and get him on the program because it just brought to mind this
Oh, that's
this
great to
person that
hear.
was so much part of my child. Not my well, I don't want to say that I'm younger than you, but I am. My childhood was spent
Most people
my
are.
teenage my teenage years was spent in front of the TV watching your program. Then my later years, when I got one of these things here, I
Yeah.
started to watch you. I started to watch on YouTube. So you've been prevalent throughout for all these years.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a good run on the Food Network. I was doing a radio show with my girlfriend out of Greenwich, Connecticut called Let's Eat. It was just a show about recipes, and we had celebrities on talking about what their meals were like at home when they were kids. And as a result of this, the man who was starting the Food Network, who had known me, he used to work for Ted Turner, took me out to lunch at Michael's restaurant in New York, my favorite restaurant there, my lucky restaurant, and offered me the opportunity to come on the Food Network. So when I came on the Food Network, he said, "You're our fireman. You're going to just do everything that we need done." There was a show called whatever it was, the first show in his TV Diners, first show in the history of television that was a restaurant review show of restaurants all over the countries. And the way we did it was we got the menus from the restaurant, hired a local crew. So suppose we're going to Dave's Chop House in Denver. They go to Dave's Chop House. They shoot the environment. They shoot him cooking. They shoot an interview with Dave from questions we have given to the crew. There's none of our own people there. It's just a freelance crew. Then they send the tape back. And the thing that was interesting about this was we also had to have the food in front of us.
Yeah.
So restaurants all over the country were wrapping up food and sending it by FedEx. And we did 6 shows in one day. And in the morning, the food stylist would have out 3 dishes from shows number 1, 3 dishes from show number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Dave's Chop House sent us their famous veal chop, right? But at the end of the day, under the hot lights, I mean, you couldn't eat any of this food. We finally get to, after hours and hours, there on the plate is Dave's famous veal chop. And co-host and I are looking at it, Nina Griscom. And I said, "Nina, isn't that interesting? Under the veal chop, I've never seen mushrooms that small." No, because they were spores. Like the thing was unbelievable. I know, it's absolutely true.
It
So
turned
we
into
had,
a science project.
yeah, we had a good time with that. And that was TV Diners. And then what ultimately I did was all of the shows except TV Diners were just like a chef behind a thing. You had Emerald, Sarah Moulton, a lot of chefs, right? David Rosengarten. And they wanted us to get out. So I created a show called Bill Boggs Corner Table, where it's like a scam. It's like a scam, Ralph. I got
Mm.
paid really good money by the Food Network to go to the greatest restaurants in America, sit down with them to a great meal, eat for free, and be on television and be paid for it. So that's Bill Boggs Corner Table. You got some wonderful people. The one with Martha Stewart was really there are a lot of them there. Fergie, Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, 2 shows with her. She did one. The next time she was back in the country, she calls the station. I want to do another one of those shows. I want to do another one of those shows with Bill Boggs. So that was Bill Boggs' Corner Table.
So the most memorable was you just said Martha Stewart. Did you just say Martha Stewart?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, she was the most memorable for that one. Take me back to an interview, whether any venue where it was disappointing. Let's go
Oh,
negative. Let's go negative first, then we'll go positive. What
well,
who let you down the most?
well, I was really looking forward to interviewing Lee Marvin. You know, the trade-off is they're promoting something. It's not like Lee Marvin says, "Oh, I want to be on the Bill Boggs show." So Lee Marvin showed up for an afternoon taping, which we would sometimes have segments we'd insert into a live show. So Lee shows up falling down drunk. I mean, all right. He gets up in the chair and he's like, "Oh, how are we doing? What are we doing here?" And the PR person just comes up and gently leads him off. And the thing that always pissed me off about this was the director had been taping it and immediately erased the tape. That would be phenomenal now in today's
Oh
world.
yeah,
I
we
would
want
say
the
that was it.
bloopers.
I always liked Lee Martin. I like his movies, the work he did, tough guy, and I would have enjoyed interviewing him, but it was impossible.
He was a guy who had my color hair when he was 40, and very handsome, rugged face. And he would sit
Absolutely.
down, and he was a little bombed on Carson. I've seen him on Carson, bombed a little bit. I've seen him on many shows. He was a character. I think he died in his 60s. We lost him pretty young. But so that was the most disappointing. Now, I mean, it's really hard
It
because
couldn't have been
you
the
talk
60s because he was on the
no
show.
in his 60s.
Oh, it is 60s, right. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So that was the most disappointing that comes to mind. I like, whatever comes to mind first. What was the greatest interview that you could remember, no matter what the venue, where you said, "Wow, this is going to go down in posterity as something that nobody's ever going to forget"? What would it be?
Well, one exists and it has done just that. Um, I had the distinction of doing the longest interview ever done with Frank Sinatra on Midday Live, and the only time he ever appeared on a talk show other than the Tonight Show. And that was something that was like destined to be. I love to tell this story because it's a mystical element to it. I love Frank Sinatra. I first saw him in the early 60s when I snuck into the infamous 500 Club in Atlantic City dressed as a busboy and saw Frank from about 25 feet away and just fell in love with him. So I started buying every record, going to see him as often as I could, and having a dream. I had a recurring dream. Now, it was like not every night, maybe three, four times a year. And in the dream, I'm sitting just like I am now, and across from me in the chair is Frank Sinatra, and we're talking. Sometimes in the dream, it didn't look like Frank, but it was still Frank. So I was set Easter weekend, 1975, to go to Las Vegas to meet a woman I was dating who lived in California. It was her birthday. She said, "Why don't you come meet me for my birthday?" I said, "We'll keep talking." She said, "Well, Elvis and Sinatra are both playing Vegas at the same time. Not together, right? I'll get the Elvis reservation. You get the Sinatra reservation." So that was set. The morning that I was set to go do midday and then take a helicopter to the airport and fly to Las Vegas, that morning, I woke up with the most vivid version of the talking to Sinatra dream I had ever had. It was like it was happening. And I thought to myself, this is a precognitive dream. I'm going to Las Vegas. I'm going to meet Sinatra, and he's going to come and do midday without my asking. It happened.
Wow,
And it happened, yeah. So how
wow.
could I not forget that one?
And Sinatra was a tough nut sometimes.
It was lovely to
He
me, lovely to my son, lovely to
It's beautiful because
yeah.
I think Carson had him on once or twice. That's
Oh
it.
yeah, he was on Carson a couple of times.
A couple of times, but not too many. Not as you would think he'd be on pretty often, being as big as he was, but he wasn't on Carson that often. I think Johnny didn't care for his. Well, actually, Johnny was very good at letting people have the spotlight.
Oh, he was
He was a
great.
little cantankerous off camera, they say. Who knows? But he had his run-ins with people. He was very quiet, very moody. But did you
Big
have
drinker. Big
yeah,
drinker.
big trigger, big trigger. It didn't help. It didn't help. Did you have an influence? Who was your role model for the business, if you had one?
The business?
Yeah, I
You
mean, getting
being
into this
on
business.
television? You mean
Yeah, just
being
being on television as a young person. Who did
Dick
you
Clark?
see that really influenced you?
Dick Clark.
Dick Clark.
Dick Clark. I'm from Philadelphia, and Dick Clark took over Bandstand while I was still in high school. Dick Clark was the hardest working white man in showbiz. This guy worked and worked and worked. He had his own production company. He was listed on the stock exchange. And he was a friend of mine from Philadelphia. And there is Philadelphians like me, there's a certain kinship to all the people from Philadelphia in showbiz. It's like Sylvester Stallone or Bobby Rydell. A lot of different people have come from Philadelphia. Anyway, that's the
Jack
deal.
Klugman.
Bill
My
Cosby.
one of my favorite actors, Jack Klugman. I think he was a Philly guy.
Yeah. Cosby too. Bill Cosby's from Philadelphia.
Cosby. Yeah, for
Although I
sure.
know you're not supposed to mention his name anymore, but
Hey,
he's
hey, I'll tell you one thing. Cosby had he had presence, he had cachet. He was the only guy who got a seat. Going back to the Tonight Show again, he was actually would sit in the middle of the stage and talk. Carson was way over there, and he'd be sitting over here having a back and forth with the camera and the audience. He had a lot of cachet, but of course,
huge stuff. He's also great.
Unfortunately, he drugged people and had sex with them when they were out unconscious. That's not great.
It's a weird obsession. Let's move on.
Little necrophilia, but it's almost like that. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. Here's the thing with TV. It used to be the thing when midday came on. This is where people went. They were waiting for the soap opera. They watch you first. Maybe they watched Another World or All My Children later on. That was the only game in town next to the radio. Now we have so many
True.
choices. It's changed so drastically.
Oh,
How do you think of
phenomenal.
the way things are done today? Are you accepting of the fact, or do you long for the old
We have
days?
to be. Well, no. I'm not a person. My career is pretty much in the past, except I am writing a third Spike book. I don't dwell on the past. I think change is inevitable. Growth from that change is optional. However, prior to the pandemic, had you asked me that question, I would have said, well, what I really miss is that on television, with the exception of Charlie Rose on PBS, there's no long form interviews on television. None. The pandemic came in, except, and well, you could say Bill Maher, because he did one interview at the beginning of the show. It was a comedy show, though. While the pandemic was occurring, podcasts began. People started talking like this. This didn't exist before the pandemic, what we're doing right now, and might not exist if there hadn't been for the pandemic. So that brought back long form interviewing, which is exactly what you and I are doing now.
That's right. And long form for sure. These guys get on the air or they're not on the air anymore. That's wrong. They're on their feed 4 hours, Bill. 5 hours sometimes. A Joe Rogan show may go 4 hours, maybe 3 hours.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
incredible. And they say people's attention span isn't what they used to
Oh,
be. So
no,
I see,
MTV changed that. MTV
yeah,
changed it. I'd love to be on the Joe Rogan show. Joe, if you're watching, I'm ready.
you to as soon as you're on that show, you have millions, and all of a sudden, whatever you're doing soars into the
See if
stratosphere.
you can get me on. See
Think,
if you can get
think
me
of
on.
We'll come on as a tandem, Joe.
You'll
Both of
get
us will
a
come on if we have
percentage
to.
of proceeds on the book if you get me on there.
Now, do you believe when you see so and so with his or her platform, 7 million subscribers? Should we buy into those numbers, or are they phony? What do
I
you
don't
think?
know. I don't know.
You're so good with what you did in the past. I figure you're up on these things. I mean, when I see somebody, I'll see some pretty mediocre person, Bill, and I'll see 4 million subscribers, and I'll say, how could that possibly
I
be?
don't
But
know. I have subscribers to BillBoggsTV. I have 21,000 subscribers to that. On
That's a good
Facebook,
number.
yeah, it's a big number. On Facebook, and it goes up every month. I can also see which videos are calibrated, with people are watching the most. And anyway, I don't know about numbers. I know what mine are. I don't know whether you can trust 20,000. There's a lot of stuff you can't trust. I just saw something on Facebook while I was wasting time scrolling Facebook. This beautiful woman singing an aria that was so gorgeous. And I thought, this is so perfect. Can it be real?
Hmm.
It was just mesmerizing. The beauty, the voice, everything. I think it was real because the background, everything looked coordinated. There's a lot of
It's hard to tell.
phony stuff out there.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. Hard to tell. I'll throw a name at you and tell me if you've interviewed or spoken to this person or you had a connection or what you think. Just people that meant a lot to me as a young actor growing up. Marlon Brando. Yeah, have you ever spoken to Marlon in his
No,
day?
like almost everybody else, I'm a big fan of Marlon Brando. I've seen every movie he made. I saw the documentary on Brando. Um, he fascinates me. He just fascinates me. But no, I never met him or interviewed him or saw him in person.
It's just
Thanks.
randomly. How,
Yeah.
how about one of these anchors like a Walter Cronkite or one of these people? Who comes to mind?
Well, I interviewed Walter Cronkite. I interviewed the late Ernie Onassis, the man who used to do, I can't remember his name. I've interviewed a lot of those people. Yes, I interviewed Walter Cronkite. I interviewed Dan Rather. The Dan Rather interview I did in North Carolina before I came to New York. Had to go shoot interviews on 16 millimeter film, and somehow that has survived. So that's on my YouTube channel with other clips from Southern Exposure with Bill Boggs. That's what launched my career uh, in High Point, North Carolina, live daytime show that I produced with a man who would become my business partner, Richard Baker, live every morning, 1 hour, and we just whatever we thought would be interesting, we put on, and the show it beat the Today Show for 3 years straight. It started with no rating, and we took 2 months to promote it, like a teaser. Who is Bill Boggs and what is he doing here on billboards, radio, TV stuff? When the show went on the air, people were dying to see it. We replaced the show with no rating and beat the Today Show in the first rating book. Huge success. And that was because the station manager, Phil Lombardo, who would go on to be president of the NAB, National Association of Broadcasters, and own 7 television stations. Very successful guy. He was just a young guy at that time. He listened to me because I got down there and they were ready to put me on the air a week after I arrived, and I was replacing a show with no rating. So Phil Lombardo said, go home this weekend and think about what you want to do. We know it's going to be a talk show, but think about what you want to do, what you want the title to be. So I came in on Monday and I said, I'd like the title to be Southern Exposure with Bill Boggs. He said, that's a great title and you're smart to put your name in it. Then I said, now, Phil, I know it's February now, early February. I don't want to go on the air until maybe April, mid-April. And he looks at me like this, and this is the tell here. Instead of saying, what are you talking about? I have to pay the weatherman for the next month and a half and pay you at the same time. No. Instead of that, he listened with the intention of understanding, not immediately responding. And he said, well, why? And I said, Phil, nobody's going to know I'm on the air. Let's do a teaser campaign, which I had mentioned before. He jumped on this. He had billboards, trade outs, everything you could do. And so I was just doing the show with Richard Baker helping me. And one afternoon, I get a call from Lombardo. Bill, can you come down here? I want to talk to you about ratings. Holy Jesus. I haven't been thinking about ratings. That was when you just got a monthly book. There wasn't a daily rating, the first quadrant. So I go down, he sits me down, and he says, quote, Bill, you've done what I would have said is impossible. What's that, Phil? We beat the Today Show in our first rating book. We've gone from a 0 to a 4.6 rating. And I said, Phil, that's because you let me do it. It was a good meeting there. It's one of my favorite stories. When I was motivational speaking around the country, when I wrote the Got What It Takes, Successful People Reveal How They Made It to the Top book, I always told that story to executives because so often people have a predisposition about what they're going to say based on what while you're saying it.
Let's go back to the first days in New York when you first arrived
Yeah.
and the way things were then as opposed to now.
Well,
Studio 50, later on, Studio 54, all those days. Talk about New York back in the 60s and 70s.
it wasn't the 60s. I went to New York in 1975. The
Okay.
city, there was a whole documentary on Netflix called 1975. It was a pivotal year. The city was filled. I didn't notice. I was just happy to be up there, filled with trash and graffiti, a very high crime rate. It was really a mess. I was impervious to this. I was just happy to be in New York, walking to work every day and doing the show, you know. So when Studio 54 really changed things, because Studio 54, at the same time, people were doing cocaine, which was a big upper, would be at Studio 54, 2 o'clock in the morning, you could see major captains of industry sitting on a couch, all coked up, talking back and forth to each other, going to work with like 2 hours sleep if they were lucky to get 2 hours sleep. So that phenomenon ended a while ago. Now businessmen are getting a good night's sleep again. But I always remember that Studio 54 was the first club, best of my knowledge, in the world that had an integration of gay clientele and straight clientele. That's one of the things that made it happen.
The Factory, Andy Warhol. Any correlation, any connection with that?
Oh yeah. Andy, met Andy in 75, so shortly after I came to New York. He was never on my show, nor did I ever invite him because I just sensed he wouldn't want to do it. I was in his company many times. In fact, we had this thing called Jog with Boggs, where I was able to get Andy, Mason Reese, Grace Jones, and Gordon Parks and and Dina Merrill all in one picture jogging to promote Jog with Boggs for charity. That's a notable shot. You can find it someplace on the. Oh, well, I have a website, BillBoggs.com, and you can find that picture there. But just to envision it, save yourself some time.
About the Beat generation, Ginsberg, these guys, Kerouac.
No, never met him.
Never met any of these guys. How about going to the hippies, like the hippies of the day?
Oh, wait, there was
Those
one of them I met, but I can't remember which one it was. Name a couple of those guys. I
of the
just met
beats,
them. Hmm?
of the beats. You're talking
Yeah, yeah.
like Kerouac, Ferlinghetti,
No,
Corso. I just said
that's a
Ginsberg, Allen Ginsberg.
yeah, that's the one. I met him.
Would you any memory?
No, it seemed like a pretty tough character. Very little memory. I don't want to make stuff up, about
I'm
Alan.
glad. I'm glad you say that because I'm
His
just throwing things
his
out cold because
his relatives could be looking down.
other talk show hosts of the day. What'd you think of Dick Cavett?
My favorite, my favorite two talk show hosts were David Frost, the Englishman who was over here, and the comedy team I managed. Patch and Tarsus were on the David Frost show like 5 times. And Dick Cavett. They were my two favorites. I put Johnny in a class by himself. He was a comedian doing more of a comedy show. Now, unquestionably, my favorite, well, Bill Maher is really my favorite. The guys who are on at night are really good now. Jimmy Kimmel, they're so funny. Stephen Colbert, brilliant. Colbert, in my opinion, is as good as anyone who has ever done late night TV, including Johnny Carson. He is smart, funny, pretty good interviewer, and his monologues are not to be missed.
What do you think of the fact that? What do you think of the fact that all those shows turned a little political? Like the Kimmel Show,
Yeah,
like
well,
what
that
you just
happened when
mentioned.
Trump came in. Trump was elected in what, 16,
Hmm.
seen as, particularly after Obama, right? Seen
Hmm.
as a polarizing type figure in a way that we haven't. And Reagan, to some people, was a polarizing figure. I guess Obama was to some because of his race, but it just there was something intrinsically polarizing about Trump and the statements he was making, the one of which was like bordering on racism. It just led him to be fodder, which he still is for comedians.
Yeah.
Alec Baldwin.
Not one night goes by without them lampooning the
Oh,
president.
it's like raw meat for a dog. I mean, they just going after it. Good. Everything
Low
in
hanging
com
fruit. Yes, go ahead.
everything in comedy depends on the premise,
Mm.
really. So once you have a premise like there's this nutty guy, you can imitate him. You can do all kinds of stuff, you know.
That wasn't bad. It's better than mine. I can imitate everybody except for Trump. I just can't do Trump. I have no idea why. George Carlin comes to mind. I'm throwing names at you.
I met
Anything?
George Carlin. I saw George Carlin perform twice. One time with my son Trevor in Vegas, and shortly after that, like a week later, a week and a half later, he was in the Westerly food market, natural food
Oh,
market.
on
And
54th Street.
yeah, on 8th Avenue. And I ran into him there and said hello and told him I had seen his act, but that was it. Oh, wait. Well, I was managing Patchen and Tarsus, a comedy team, which is how I got into show business, managing the comedy team. There was a couple of clubs downtown, like Cafe Wa, the Village Gate, and saw Carlin in his initial incarnation, which is a suit and tie, where he was doing characters like Al Sleet, the hippy dippy weatherman. So
Mm.
I saw him very early. I saw Woody Allen do stand up at the Village Gate. I've always loved comedy all my life, all my
Now,
life.
now Woody's pushing 90. What do you think the way he's been treated? What do you think of the way he's been treated?
He just, he's like a lightning rod. Once he married Soon Yi, ironically, that threw a major amount of people off him since she was the adopted daughter of his wife at this. Well, no, he and Mia were never married, I don't think, of his
Oh,
paramour, Mia. And, I saw them walking down the street 2 years ago and stopped to say hello, and we chatted briefly. And she was by his side. They were holding hands. I thought, it just worked out for him. But he just became poison to people. It's a shame. He's a brilliantly talented guy. I believe he's made a couple of films in France that can be found. All of his stuff was really good.
films that you've seen countless times that you can't get enough of.
Oh, Casablanca. I love Bogart. Ingrid Bergman reminds me in her beauty of the great love of my life girlfriend that I had, Nicole von Steinbuchel, Austrian woman. And I just love that line. In fact, I thought of it today. Of all the gin joints in the world, why does she have to walk in here? So Casablanca, Six with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I did know Paul Newman. Actually, I had dinner with Paul Newman and his daughter Susan a couple times. And I just passed Robert Redford as he was coming down the steps from the plaza and I was going up. There's that famous scene in The Way We Were. And I just said, hi, like that.
Barbara Streisand.
Oh, Streisand, I met a couple times. She has gorgeous skin and a beautiful like bosom area. I saw her in the thing that was her breakthrough. I didn't see her in I Can Get It For You Wholesale, where she played Miss Marmalstein. I saw her in the show that really broke away, Funny Girl. Being from Philadelphia in the olden days, whenever Funny Girl came out, probably 64, the Broadway show Funny Girl. Um, Shows opened out of town. They opened in Boston or Philadelphia, and then you have a tryout, tinker with it, fix it up, go to New York. So that Funny Girl ran for 3 weeks in '64 in Philadelphia. And I loved it. Went to see it a couple times with her. Saw her perform a full concert at Forest Hills Music Venue one hot summer night, and just met her one time, and I liked her very much. There's a woman I would have enjoyed dating. I think it would have been very interesting dating her. She has a very handsome husband, by the way.
James Brolin.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah, no doubt. Name somebody, Bill, that never got his or her due. In other words, a talented individual that just, for some reason, never really hit where he or she should have hit.
Um, it depends what you mean by hit.
You
The,
know, got the notoriety that she or he deserved.
I'll tell you, the best thing I can say about this is when interviewing Sammy Davis Jr., one of the most gracious human beings, I got to know him very well. I mean, the story of how I met Sammy is one of my all-time favorite stories to tell. Anyway, when he was on Midday, we were doing section questions from the audience, Sammy Davis, and I stopped, Sam, hey, I have a question. The man in the audience just called you the world's greatest entertainer, which is commonly a label that's commonly given to you. How does your friend Frank Sinatra feel when he hears you called the world's greatest entertainer? And Sammy, smoking that cigarette, says, I don't know about that, but I want to say that there could be a guy in Pittsburgh right now with all the talent in the world who just never got a break, who would have been the world's greatest entertainer. So he gave tribute to the kind of person you're talking about.
I remember the kiss, the interracial kiss between two men, Carol O'Connor and Sammy Davis, appearing on All in the
Yeah, it was
Family.
great. That was great.
And that's how I remember Sammy, because I was a little bit young, but yeah, very interesting. A favorite sitcom of yours, one that you could watch in reruns and never get tired of it.
That's a good question. I think the great Saturday night lineup of All in the Family, Mary Tyler Moore Show, and what was the third? Well, Bob Newhart. Those three. Anything by Newhart. And I also like Tim Allen's work very much.
An actor that you never miss a film that he's in.
Well, I look up films of Bogarts so I can go back and try to find them. If I'm interested in somebody like Lauren Bacall, right, who we know is Maria Bogart, I became interested in her after seeing a 2-hour thing on Netflix about 4 or 5 days ago called The Secrets of Doris Duke, amazingly wealthy woman. And Lauren Bacall played the older version of, there was a little girl and there's a beautiful middle-aged woman. And that got me interested in her work again. So I'm just looking it up and trying to find somebody I want to see with Lauren Bacall.
And she lived in the Dakota, right there on Central Park West for many years. I think, yeah, and
That's where
she
Woody
died.
lives too, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I'll throw a few musicians and rock stars. Your experience, John Lennon. Anything?
No, I tried to get him on Midday, and he wrote me a very nice letter with a cartoon that somehow has gotten lost. And it was really sweet. He said, "We watched the show, and I just don't want to be on TV." A nice note. And then I passed him with his wife at Columbus Circle, and we stopped and had a brief chat. But that's it with John.
David Bowie.
Bowie was on Midday promoting. He was a brilliant actor in a play called The Elephant Man.
Yeah.
It was the original man cast in The Elephant Man. So he was on promoting that, and he was just very highly erudite, lovely fellow, intelligent guy.
I mentioned him before, Miles Davis.
Well, Miles Davis like Sinatra, made his only TV talk show appearance with me. Not bragging, it's just a fact, but the story of how it happened is interesting. I was involved with a woman, one of the many, um, who had a drinking problem like sometimes she'd have a couple glasses of wine and she would be like Mary Poppins, the hills are alive. Other times she'd have like on the second glass, she'd sort of be turning into Hannibal Lecter. I'm gonna rip your heart out. So I was sitting at a table in a restaurant in LA. The woman is directly in front of me, and then there's another table here behind them, and she's starting in on me. She's starting in on me, and it just as it gets to the point where the whole evening's going to be ruined, like lemmings, somebody taps her on the shoulder. Oh no, I get a tap on the shoulder, and I turn around. Miles Davis? Bill Boggs, how you doing, man? I've been watching your shows like the Today Show for me. Let me meet your woman. So Davis, I gives her a hug. You could smell the cologne. It was beautiful. He leaves us, and he said, "Here's my manager's card. I'm going to be at Lincoln Center. Come on in and see me." Okay. So I went to order was restored immediately. No, no more problem. So a couple of weeks later, I went to Lincoln Center, saw Miles, and I had this note to go backstage. So I went backstage, and dressing room was ajar. He's talking to a couple of beautiful African American women. His trumpet's on a stool, and he sees me. He said, "Hey, Boggs, come here, come here, lean over." And in my ear, he says, "I saved your ass in LA, didn't I?" And as a result of our meeting and the rapport we had, he agreed to, at his own expense, take a limo to Philadelphia to do that interview. I don't tell that story often because it seems so far-fetched, but he just wanted me to interview him because he enjoyed my work just like I enjoyed his work.
It's a great one. That's a great one.
Thank you.
We'll use that as a short to this video, that little story right there, because that's a good one.
Okay.
But and also this is going to be on the radio too. We'll do a double dip on this one. Buddy Rich, my favorite drummer of all time, the best drummer of all time, in my opinion.
Kid Traps, that was his nickname. Um, I interviewed Buddy. I had Buddy on with Mel Torme and Sid Mark, the disc jockey from Philadelphia who did the Sounds of Sinatra. Very funny man. I saw him perform with Frank. I ran into him backstage. Gracious and great to me, but he had an edge to him. I
Oh,
think you have to be a drummer, but I really like Buddy Rich. And I saw him perform. Man, I saw him perform with Sinatra at least 3 times.
are you musical? Do you
Yes.
play an instrument?
No, I like to sing.
Mm. Did you ever think of being an actor yourself?
Originally, I thought I wanted to be an actor. That was my goal. I was in drama club in school, and what happened was I was working always to make money. I was managing a comedy team. We haven't gotten into that, but to supplement my income, I was working 4 days a week on a talk show in Philadelphia called McLean and Company. And I don't want to lose my train of thought here. I just said what was I aiming at?
You were aiming at I now I don't know myself. Um I said Buddy Rich, and you told me how you had an edge, and I asked you if you were a singer, a musician. I asked you if you were a musician, if you played an instrument.
Oh, okay, I got it. So you've just asked me about being an actor, right? Ask me that question again.
And then okay, I'm gonna rewind and ask you again. Bill, have you ever thought in your past any time whatsoever of being an actor?
I think my whole life growing up, I was on stage in third grade. Actually, I was on stage in kindergarten. I took to it naturally, both public speaking and acting. In high school, I was in the drama club, and I always had it in mind that I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to go to Yale School of Acting. But first, I went to the University of Pennsylvania because my mother wanted me to go there. But anyway, the, the the thing that made me drop the ambition was working for this McLean and Company show. They gave me the job of screening tapes. This is before it came on the air. Tom Snyder was leaving to go to California. The goal was for Debbie Miller, the producer, to find a host and create a new live show at 9 a.m. So she gave me the job of screening tapes that people had sent in. And as I saw talk show hosts, I thought, I could do this. This would be a faster route to getting a career in show business, and that's how it started.
That's great. That was very practical. Why were you so, we have to wrap it up in a few minutes, but why were you so successful? How did you make, when so many people fail, they come to New York with big dreams and they fall on their face. How did you make it work?
Well, I was already very successful when I came to New York. The key to my success was that meeting with Lombardo, Southern exposure with Bill Boggs, which Lombardo got syndicated. The fact they did that for 3 years, it was so successful. I had an offer from New York, Miami, or San Francisco, and I chose New York. So when I came to New York, the biggest problem I had was I had complete freedom on producing my own show. And in New York, I heard a term I never liked, and I heard it for the first time. We're producing you. Never liked that. And I don't think really successful hosts like Regis was, or any of these people, are taking a lot of orders from producers. But that was frustrating for me because they were, I guess, so I'll give you a story about Lauren Bacall. This is
Mhm.
nuts. I was an Emmy voter, went to the Emmys, voted, and then there was a dinner afterwards. And at the dinner, I was sitting next to Lauren Bacall. We had this great rapport. I told her about the show. I said, I'd love for you to come on. Okay. She said, yes, I'd like to. Gives me a contact. Now, get this. I go in the next day, trumpeting this to the producer, the staff. Why should we have her on? I said, it's Lauren Bacall, but she has nothing to plug. And I said, she'd be a great guest. Yeah, but she has nothing to plug. That mindset, wrong, period, wrong. But
Right.
I couldn't get it wrong. I couldn't convince the producers. It was that lack of total control that I didn't like for the entire 13 years I did Midday.
So these books that you're so, into, and this is what you're really devoting a lot of your time to. I think I see it means a lot to you. Why
Yeah.
why did you go in why'd you go in that direction? What made you first get the idea of the telling a story from the dog's perspective? That's very unique.
Well, I started into this earlier in the interview. Basically, I just took something that happened in my life and transported it into the present. Spike never came with me to New York because he was killed by a drunk driver. So I had to bring it into the present. Spike is alive, and they become a huge sensation, Ralph. And I just sat down, and the voice of the dog just came through me. I had never written hard-hitting satire before. I started my career, I was in a stand-up comedy team. I started my career managing a comedy team for 3 years, knew a lot of comedians, loved comedy, and that's how it happened.
All right, one
I
of my
just sat
serious
down, I was
one.
I was writing, and it just happened.
All
There's a
right.
book talking
That's
about
how
this.
things happen. Yeah, I want you to hold it up. That's
Yeah, this
there
is
we
a
go.
Spike Unleashed, the Wonder Dog Returns. You have people saying, let's see. Oh yeah, I love this quote. The creator of The Simpsons, seriously, says not since Voltaire has someone written such an epic takedown of society. Bill's written an amazingly funny book and so hip. And that's Simpsons level. So I guarantee laughs. I mean, I'm not bragging. I've never had anybody read the book who didn't say I was laughing all the way through. Spike Unleashed, but it's going to cost you $11 on Amazon.
By the way, read a
Well,
book,
they charge you
folks,
like about $25, 25 cents a laugh.
and get the get the real thing. Get the actual book that you can hold in your hand and you could read the book. There's nothing better than that
Well,
experience. I love it.
you can get the audio version, or you can get
Okay.
the version. But
One last question, because this guy is a very avid listener and a subscriber and everything else. He wants to know, totally unrelated. It dates back to the top of the show. Um, where are the tapes? He wants to know of the Morton Downey Jr. show. Where are they? They can't be found, according to him.
that's true. I think
What
they're in.
happened?
Well, I think they're in possession of Pittman's organization. I think I'll write him about that, but they couldn't, just because of the sponsors, and they couldn't find another life. There's a couple of things on Bill Boggs TV with Morton Downey Jr. Oh yeah, I had to substitute for him. The next time we'll get back into Mort. There's great stories there.
We'll do a whole show just on that experience. And that's our friend Chris, by the way, and his last name escapes me, but I want to mention his name, my friend Chris there. Okay, hey Bill, anything I didn't touch on, feel free and tell the folks where they can find you now one more time, please.
Okay, I'll do that. And I'd like you to send me a link so I can paste this on my YouTube channel.
Certainly
Okay.
will.
So I can be found on a website, BillBoggs.com. I have a massive YouTube presence with about 500 videos. That is Bill Boggs TV on YouTube. I'm on Instagram at Bill Boggs and Substack, the same thing at Bill Boggs. Facebook, can't get away from that name, Bill Boggs. So I'd like to hear from people. I've enjoyed this thoroughly. It's a high point of the day for me, but you have no idea what the rest of the day was up to this.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. We have to do this more often. Thank you very much, Bill.
Peace.
Peace. Take care.